Hey guys, welcome back to another maths tutorial. In this video, I'll be showing you how to solve simultaneous equations using what we call the elimination method. Before we get into it, I just want you to have a clear understanding of what we mean by simultaneous equations. So simultaneous equations, it involves two or more unknowns that are to have the same values in each equation. So basically it has two values or two or more values that satisfies both equation. So let's look at our first example. Again, I mentioned that we're using the elimination method. I already went ahead to label my equation 1 and equation 2. And the reason for that, guys, is just give you like a clear picture of what you're doing, and when I'm talking about each equation, already they're labeled, so it will help you to follow more. Alright guys, so I said we're using the elimination method, and in using this method, the aim is to first ensure that the coefficient of the variable that you want to eliminate or they are the same. So in this case, if you look at y for both equations, they already have a coefficient of 1, which means that both of them already have the same coefficient. So it's quite easy for us to work this question and to eliminate the y in this case. So the next thing that we need to check is the signs for the variables that we want to eliminate. So if you realize, once we have the same sign, we will subtract. So I highlighted the sign for you to see that in both equations, the y is positive. So once the signs are the same in both equations for the variable that you want to eliminate, you will subtract. So step 1, eliminate the letter with the same coefficient. So I rewrite my question. We agree that we need to subtract. So I have 6x minus 4x, and then that will give me 2x, as well as that y minus y will give me 0. I don't need to write it. We agree that it will go. And 15 minus 11, that will give me 4. So far I should have 2x is equal to 4. And now it's just for me to solve for my unknown in this case, which is x. So in order to solve for x, the 2 is being multiplied by the x. So all I need to do now is to do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide both sides of the equation by 2 in order to solve for my unknown, which is x. So I divide both sides by 2, I get x is equal to 2. Now I know that my x is equal to 2, so my step 2 now, guys, is to find y, and in doing that I will substitute my x equal to back into one of the original equations. To be honest, it doesn't really matter which equation you use, but in this case I'll use equation 1. So using equation 1, what I'm doing is 6 times 2, and the reason for that, if you realize equation 1 it says 6x, but now I know that my x is equal to 2, so I do 6 times 2 plus y, I write it back, equals to 15. My next step now is just to simplify that, so 6 times 2, that gives me 12, and I write back my plus y is equal to 15. My next step now, guys, is to solve for my unknown, which is y. So I should minus 12 from both sides of the equation in order to get the y by itself. So I do 12 minus 12 plus y is equal to 15 minus 12. And you would agree that 12 minus 12 will give you 0. So on my left hand side here, I'm left with y, and that's equal to 15 minus 12, that's 3. So in this case, what we're saying is that x is equal to 2 and my y is equal to 3. Always remember this final step, guys, that I'll be doing. Check your answer. It's very easy for you to check your answer once you're dealing with simultaneous equations. So don't forget to do this step. It's so important. You can choose any one of the equations to check your answer, and all you're going to do now is just to substitute the values that you got for x and y into one of the equations to check if your answer is correct. So we agree that we got x is equal to 2, we got y is equal to 3. So I'll choose one of my equation. I'm using equation 2, really doesn't matter which one, to be honest. So I have 4 times 2 because I'm replacing this x with 2, and then plus my y is 3, so I write plus 3, and that's equal to 11. Let's evaluate our left hand side to see if we really get 11. That's our aim. So 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3. So now we have 8 plus 3. On my right, I still have 11. I'm not changing that, that remains. I'm just checking my left to ensure that my left hand side is equal to my right hand side. So now I need to add 8 plus 3, which gives me 11 as well. So 11 is equal to 11. Therefore, we can agree that my answer is correct. Now let's look at a second example. Again, I went ahead to label my equation 1 and equation 2. But looking at this, guys, already I'm seeing that the coefficient of my y's are the same, which therefore means that it's quite easy for me now to go ahead and eliminate my y. So I now need to check the signs. Again, once they have the same signs, we subtract. So in this case, I'll be subtracting equation 2 from equation 1. So step 1 now is to eliminate the letter with the same coefficient. So in this case, I'm rewriting back my question. Now I have 3x minus 2x. That will just give me x. And then 2y minus 2y, we agree that that will give us 0, which is our aim anyway, to eliminate a variable. And now I have 12 minus 10, that will give me 2. So far I have x is equal to 2. Already I have the x by itself, guys. There's nothing for me to do here, so my life is even easier just now. Alright guys, so let's move on to step 2. So step 2 is now to find my y by substituting my x is equal to 2 back into one of the original equations. We can choose any one of them. I don't know why I keep using equation 1, but that's fine. I'll use it again. So now I have 3 times 2, and we agree for equation 1 it's 3x, so it therefore means that I'm doing a 3 times the value that I got for x, which is 2. So 3 times 2, then I write back plus 2y there is equal to 12. And then it's all now for me to solve this simple equation. 3 times 2 will give me 6. And then I write back my plus 2y equal 12. Solving for my y, I first need to eliminate it at 6. I need to get rid of that at 6. So I subtract it from both sides of the equation. And now I should have 2y is equal to 6. Because we would agree 6 minus 6 on my left will give me 0. And 12 minus 6, that gives me 6. Now I'm solving for y, which therefore means that that 2, I need to get rid of it. And in doing so, it therefore means I need to do the opposite of multiplication because the 2 is being multiplied by the y. So I do 2 and I divide both sides now of the equation by 2. And now I should get my y to be equal to 3. So now I have x is equal to 2 and my y is equal to 3. And step 3, guys, it's like you're testing or you're checking your answer. Okay guys, let's look at our final step now. Step 3, which is to check your answer. So again, you can choose any one of the equation. Let's use equation 2. I already know that my x is equal to 2, my y is equal to 3. So I'm using equation 2 to check my answer. So I have 2 times 2, and again the reason for that is I know that my x is 2, and I'm using equation 2, so it's 2 times 2. Then I have plus 2y, which is now 2 times 3 because my y is equal to 3, and that's equal to 10. I'm not really worried about my right hand side, guys. All I need to do now is just to simplify my left hand side and check if I'll get exactly the same that's on my right, which is 10. So now I have 2 times 2, that should give me 4, and 2 times 3, that should give me 6. So now I have 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. Now I had 4 plus 6, that's also 10. Would agree that my left hand side is equal to my right, so my answer is correct. Lovely. Now let's look at a third example, guys. And already you should be looking at this question and seeing if there's anything different with the one that we did previously. Again, the coefficients of the y's are the same, which makes it quite easy for us again because we don't need to multiply equation 1 or 2 by anything to get them the same, so that's okay. But again, the next step now, guys, is to check your signs. So looking at the signs, you realize this time around we have a plus sign and a minus sign, which therefore means that once we have different signs, we add the equations. That's the only way we can eliminate the variable that we're trying to get rid of. So step 1, we eliminate the letter with the same coefficient again. So I'm rewriting back my equations, and we agree that we're adding both equations in this case. So I'm going to add 4x plus 5x, that should give me 9x. And when I add a plus 3y plus a minus 3y, that will give me 0. That was the aim anyway, to get rid of or to eliminate my variable, and in this case we chose y. And now I have 32 plus 13, that should give me 45. So far I have 9x is equal to 45. I'm solving for my unknown in this case, which is x, which therefore means that I'll divide both sides of the equation by 9, and I should get x is equal to 5, because 9 divided by 9 will just give me 1. So on my left I have x, and on my right that's 45 divided by 9, that gives me 5. Now let's take a look at step 2, which is really now to find my next unknown, which is in the equation, and in this case it is y. So we substitute what we know so far, which is x is equal to 5, we know that, and we substitute it back into one of the original equations. I'm choosing to use equation 1, that's okay. So now I have 4 times 5 plus 3y is equal to 32. And again, let's look at equation 1 again, guys. We have 4 times my unknown, which is x, but I already know that x is 5, so I'm not writing x, I'm writing 5. So that's how I get 4 times 5 here. Plus 3y, I write back that because I don't know what y is as yet, and that's equal to 32. Now let's simplify this equation and solve for my unknown. 4 times 5, that will give me 20. I write back my plus 3y is equal to 32. I'm trying to solve the equation now, guys, for y. So now I first need to get rid of this 20 here, which means that I subtract 20 from both sides of the equation. Now I should be left with 3y is equal to 12. Solving for y again, now I need to get rid of this 3, so therefore means that I need to divide both sides of the equation by 3, and I should get my y is equal to 4. And final step, guys, I love this step so much. It's really a good feeling when you can check your answer and know that it is correct even when you're in an exam. So let's look at this, guys. Again, we know that x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 4. I choose any one of the equation. Let's use equation 2. So I do 5 times 5 because we know that my x is equal to 5. So I do 5 times 5. There's a minus sign there, I write it. And then it's 3 times 4. I use 4 because my y is 4. And again, I'm not really worried about my right hand side, guys. I'm just checking my left hand side, substituting those values and simplify. So 5 times 5, that's 25, minus 3 times 4, that's 12. So now I have on my left 25 minus 12, and let's see what that gives us. Yes, it does give us 13. So my left hand side is equal to my right hand side, which therefore means my answer is correct. Lovely. Guys, we'll be looking at questions now when coefficients are not the same. So the 3 examples that we covered so far, you'd realize that the variable that we tried to eliminate, they had the same coefficients. So this time around, the questions that we'll be doing for the rest of the video, the coefficients will not be the same, which therefore means that we'll have to find a way to get them to be the same. Now let's look at an example that involves each variable having different coefficients. So again, if you check, we have this being 3x and this being 5x, which means that the coefficients of the x's would have been different, as well as the coefficient here is 3 and this one would have been 1, which means that they're also different. So it therefore means that we have to find a way to get them to be exactly the same. So our first step, guys, is when neither coefficients are the same, we multiply one or both equations to make them the same. So I'm going to multiply equation 2 by 3. So I'm going to do 3 times 5x, which will give me 15x, 3 times y, which will give me 3y, and 3 times negative 2, that gives me negative 6. And I'm calling this equation 3. Now my next step now, guys, is basically to use the original equation 1 and the new equation 3, and would agree that we're using equation 1 and new equation 3 because the coefficient of the y in those two equations would have now been 3. So step 2, which should have been our first step if the coefficients were already the same anyway, but in this case it now becomes step 2 for this type of question. So we eliminate the letter with the same coefficient. So I write equation 3 and I also write equation 1. The truth is, guys, you could write equation 1 before equation 3. It really doesn't matter, you will get the same result. So I chose to write it this way just to eliminate getting those negative signs, but that's okay. So now I have 15x minus 3x, that will give me 12x. Again, 3y minus 3y, we agree, same sign, we will subtract, so that will give me 0, and now I have negative 6 minus 18, and that will give me a negative 24. So far I have 12x is equal to negative 24. Solving for my unknown, which is x, I divide both sides of the equation by 12, and I should get my x is equal to negative 2. So now I know my x is equal to negative 2. I can go to step 3, which is really now to substitute x equal negative 2 into any one of my equation 1 or my equation 2 to find my unknown, which is y. So I use equation 1, which therefore means I have 3 times negative 2, because now I know my x is negative 2, so I replace that x with negative 2. I write back my plus 3y, and I also write back equal 18. Let's simplify now my left hand side. So I have 3 times negative 2, that will give me a negative 6. I write back my plus 3y equal 18. Trying to solve for y, guys. That negative 6, I first need to get rid of it. So I do the inverse of negative, which is to add. So I add 6 to both sides of the equation. When I do that, negative 6 plus 6 will give me 0. So on my left I now have 3y, and on my right I would have 18 plus 6, which would have given me 24. Almost there, guys. So now I need to divide both sides of the equation now by 3 to solve for my unknown, which is y. So my y is now equal to 8. And my final step, guys, which I always tell you, don't forget this step, check your answer. Okay, so I'll be checking my answer. Now I know that my x is equal to negative 2, my y is equal to 8. So I have 5 times negative 2, which means that I'm just using equation 2 plus 8, because my y would have been 8, yeah, and that's equal to negative 2. I'm using equation 2, so look carefully at what I have, guys. 5 times negative 2 because x is negative 2. I write back plus 8 because my y is 8, and that's equal to negative 2. Now I'm not even worried about my right hand side, so I just need to simplify my left hand side to see if I get the same that's on my right. So I have 5 times negative 2, which would have given me negative 10 plus 8. When I work out negative 10 plus 8, I should get negative 2, which therefore means my answer is correct. Now let's look at another example involving the coefficients being different for both variables. So again, as we mentioned in the previous example, our first step is that when neither coefficients are the same, we multiply one or both equations to make them the same. So what I'm going to do is multiply equation 2 by 2, and if I do that, you would agree that having that 2y there and I'd multiply it by 2, I would have gotten 4y, which would make the coefficient of the y to be the same, and that's my aim anyway. So let's do equation 2, just multiply it by 2. I would have gotten 2 times 5x, which would have given me 10x, and that 2 times 2y would have given me 4y, and that 2 times 16 would have given me 32. And now call that equation 3. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is that I'm going to use the original equation 1 and the new equation 3. So step 2 now, guys, is to eliminate the letter with the same coefficient. So I'm writing equation 3 and I'm writing equation 1. Again, remember what I said earlier, the order in which you write both equations really doesn't matter. It shouldn't affect the answer that you get in the end. Alright, so I wrote equation 1, I wrote equation 3. My next step now, guys, is to check the signs. So if they have different signs, we agree that we add both equations. So I'm going to add 3x plus 10x, that should give me 13x. We agree that plus 4y plus a negative 4y will give me 0. That's my aim anyway, to eliminate one of the variable, which is y in this case. And 7 plus 32 would have given me 39. So far I have 13x is equal to 39. I'm trying to solve for my unknown in this equation, which is x. So therefore means I need to divide both sides of the equation by 13. So now my x is equal to 3. So now that I know my x is equal to 3, my next step now, which is step 3, is basically to substitute x equals 3 back into one of my equation. I'm using equation 1. Really doesn't matter which one you use, that's fine. So I write 3 times 3 plus 4y is equal to 7. And again, just look at equation 1. It's 3x, and we agree that we got x to be 3, so I'll be doing 3 times 3. That's why I have 3 times 3 here. And that's plus 4y equals 7. I'm trying to solve for my unknown in this equation, which is y. So I do 3 times 3, that should give me 9. I write back plus 4y equals 7. Again, that 9, I need to get rid of it, so I subtract it from both sides of the equation. So I should be left with 4y equal negative 2. I divide both sides of the equation now by 4 because I'm trying to solve for my unknown, which is y. So now my y is equal to negative 0.5, or you could write it as negative a half. Alright, so now my next step now, guys, is my final step, which I always mention. Please do it, it's very important. Check your work, check your answers. So I'm using equation 2 to check my answer. It really doesn't matter which one you use. X is equal to 3, y is equal to negative 0.5. So I need to substitute those values in the equation that I choose. Using equation 2, I get 5 times 3, because we agree that I'm replacing the x here with a 3, minus 2 times a negative 0.5, because that's what I got for y, and then that's equal to 16. Again, remember, we're not worried about our right hand side, guys. All we need to do now is to simplify our left hand side to see if we get the same answer that's on our right. So 5 times 3, guys, that gives me 15. Take away 2 times negative 0.5, that would have given me a negative 1. And I write back my equal 16. So now I have 15 minus negative 1 equals 16, which would give me 15 plus 1 equals 16. And then checking my left hand side now, 15 plus 1 equals 16, which therefore means that my left hand side is equal to my right hand side. So therefore my answer is correct. Now let's look at our final example for this video, guys. Already I went ahead to label my equation 1 and equation 2, but just looking at the coefficients of each variable, I realized that they're all different. Again, so once I'm using the elimination method, I need to get the coefficients of one of the variables to be the same in order to eliminate. So I'm going to choose my x. So what I'm going to do is to multiply my first equation, which is equation 1, by 5, so that I can get this variable to now becomes 5 times 2x, which would be 10x. And then I'm going to multiply my second equation by 2, so that way I can get 2 times 5, which will also give me 10x. But it therefore means to keep the equation balanced, I will have to multiply each term in the equation but by what I decide to use. Alright, so step 1. Just to remind you again, when neither coefficients are the same, we may need to multiply both equations to make them the same. So I'm going to multiply equation 1 by 5, each term in equation 1 by 5, which gives me 10x plus 15y is equal to 150. And just to recap, remember we do 5 times 2x, that's 10x, 5 times 3y, that's 15y, and 5 times 30, that's 150. And then now, I'm going to call that equation 3. And now, what I'm going to do now is multiply equation 2 by 2. Right, so I'm going to do 2 times 5x, 2 times 7y, and 2 times 71. I should get 10x plus 14y is equal to 142. Again, just to recap, so that's 2 times 5x, 10x, 2 times 7y, 14y, and 2 times 71, 142. And I'm going to call that equation 4. So now, guys, given that I have these two equations, having the coefficient of the x variable being the same, I can use my elimination method. So next step to check is that once we have the same sign, we'll subtract. So we'll be solving using equation 3 and 4. My next step now, guys, is to eliminate the letter with the same coefficient. So let's first write equation 3 and 4. And we agree that we need to subtract. So 10x minus 10x will give me 0. I don't need to write that. Then 15y minus 14y will give me y, which is 1y, but I can just simply write y. And 150 take away 142 will give me 8. So we agree that those signs are the same anyway. So y is equal to 8. Now let's look at our third step, which is basically to substitute y equal 8 back into one of the original equations in order to solve for x. So I'm going to be using equation 1. So I have 2x plus 3 times 8 is equal to 30. And again, I write back my 2x plus 3 times my value for y is 8. So that's the reason why I write 3 times 8. And that's equal to 30. My next step now is to evaluate 3 times 8, that gives me 24. So now I have 2x plus 24 is equal to 30. And now I'm trying to solve for my unknown, which is x. So I first subtract 24 from both sides of the equation. So now I have 2x plus 24 minus 24, that will give me 0. So I'm just left with 2x on my left and 30 minus 24, that gives me 6 on my right. So I divide both sides of the equation now by 2 to solve for my unknown, which is x. So my x is equal to 3. And our final step, guys, is just to check our answer. Don't forget to do that step. It's very important. So we agree x is equal to 3, y is equal to 8. I'm going to be using equation 2 to check my answer. So I have 5 times 3 plus 7 times 8 is equal to 71. Again, I'm not really worried about my right hand side, guys. I'm just evaluating my left hand side to see if I get exactly what's on my right. So I have 5 times 3, that should give me 15. 7 times 8, that should give me 56. So I have 15 plus 56. When I add those two numbers, I should get 71. So we'd agree that given that my left hand side is equal to my right hand side, my answer is correct. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching this tutorial as well as watching it to the end of it. I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as well as if you haven't clicked that notification bell as yet, make sure you click it so you're notified when I post new videos. Like and share this video. See you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.